Good morning, and how are you guys today? I'm at the allotment. The weather is not the best, but it's also lovely because it's cooler than it has been, and as a result, I think it's going to be a nice day for hard work for those of you who actually want to do a bit of hard work. However, I'm here to do something slightly different. Often, when we come to the allotment, we focus on doing rather than stopping to think about what actually needs doing. As we all know, a gardener's work is never done. And as a result, what we need to make sure of is we need to make sure of the fact that we're actually prioritizing the things that really need to be done in order to ensure a good harvest and also things that will ensure that we don't end up with a lot more work, which takes us days and days to finish and makes us lose the will to live. I think my allotment at this moment in time is at a point where it's thriving. It looks lovely. It makes me smile when I look at it. And yet, despite the fact that it looks good, there's still a lot that needs to be done. So, one of the things I've been wanting to do, but have been putting off because I'm too busy harvesting, I'm too busy planting, is actually sorting out zoning my space in order that I can start to plan for next year's growing season, as well as to consider how I move forward with my succession planting. Because what I have been doing is I've been trying to ensure that I succession plant. And so that's something I've been wanting to do, meaning to do, but not getting to it because every time I come, there's other things to do. And there is a lot. So today, I'm actually going to go around, list everything that needs doing, identify the priorities after I am done, and order everything according to priority. So I'm going to use, high, medium, and low priority. So low priority are the things that are not going to end up causing me any problem if I don't do them immediately. Medium priority means although I can put them off for a little bit, I still need to get them done. And high priority means things I need to get done immediately to ensure that I don't end up with a problem that will then make me have to spend hours sorting. We got a little bit of drizzle, despite the fact that they say today there was no rain, but I think it's a bit more like a mist. Oh, it is really trying to rain. Come on. I'm going to get an umbrella and sit here anyway. One of the other things I wanted to do today, despite the fact that I came knowing what I needed to do, is to create a fire slab. So you set down a slab, you put bricks around it, so you can actually have an enclosed fire which doesn't touch the ground. And it's something I've been wanting to do for a while. So I'm considering whether or not it's worth doing so I can sit somewhere warm as I consider what I want to do. You see how you get sidetracked? Anyway, let me show you a little bit of what I want to do. We're going to walk around the allotment. It's not going to be a tour. It's just going to be a process of listing everything I want to get done in a video so that when I actually then sit down, I can look back at this video and start to plan what I need to do when. Okay, are we ready? Let's go. We're going to start at the beginning of the plot and I will tell you what needs doing. So one of the things I decided to do is I decided to zone my plot in order to ensure that when I'm planning, I have an idea of what is where. So this is A, B, and then we move up the plot. This is zone C on the left, and this is zone D on the right. And then I classify this as zone E, and this small little 2-bed area as a zone F, and then this is zone G. So I divided them into zones in order that I can decide what has grown where. And also, although I don't necessarily do crop rotation religiously, it's something that I want to consider. And then each zone has the number of beds. So in zone A, for example, let's do zone B because it's got, you can see further into it. So in zone B, we have beds. So we got bed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the corn garden, and 7. So they'll be labeled B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7. So the same will happen with zone A with its 4 beds. You'll have A1 to A4 and so on and so forth. So then what I will do is, as I go through each area, I'm going to show you how I'm actually going to do the planning. So in zone A, one of the things I had wanted to do, although risky it is, as the potatoes are almost done, my main crop, Desiree potatoes, are almost done, I wanted to earth it up, which I have done. So A1 doesn't need any work other than regular watering at the moment. A2 is doing absolutely fantastic, and I gave it a feed the other day. So other than deadheading, is the one job that needs to be done in here, is deadheading, possibly putting a net on my seeds, as Pete from the Cornish Garden did, Pete Trenoth. So that's something that needs doing. Something else that I need to do in A2 is I need to pull back the cosmos, which has actually outgrown its space. I didn't realize that cosmos was supposed to grow this big. I expected, whenever I've seen people's, I've never seen it as appearing to grow nearly as tall as I am, and I'm about 5'4", so it's nearly at my height. So I need to do something about that, and I need to read up about whether I can prune it back a little bit to keep it short, or whether I just need to let it grow. But it definitely needs to be pulled away from the path, which will mean putting areas in the corner, poles in the corner, in order that I can then tie it back. I deadheaded some of the sunflowers, but they need more deadheading, and I'm considering tying them together a little bit to pull them in a bit so they're not so spread in the whole space, taking up so much space that the other plants don't have anywhere to go. A3 is a bed that needs a lot of work. Let's move there and see. So A3 is going to be a project. I need to rework this bed. It's working fine for the red cabbages. However, it needs a proper border around it, which will work well to hold a lot more soil, so I can mulch it well with manure to give it better soil than it has at the moment. It's got very hard clay soil, and it is a challenge to work with. A4 is my straw bed. And really and truly, I should be telling you about how my straw bed is doing. And all I can say is my straw bed is doing absolutely beautiful. As you can see, it's, it's just bursting with plants. And so the one thing I need to do regularly with this, and something I've been trying to do daily whilst I'm off, is water it. In addition to that, on A4, I have to harvest this courgette. In fact, we can do it as we talk, because of the fact that if I don't, it's going to just keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So this one needs to come out, and so I'll do it now because it's easy enough to do. There we go. So these are the kind of things that if it takes less than 1 minute, I can do it and then go back to what we're doing now. So A4 had a courgette to harvest, but other than that, it doesn't need anything else at the moment rather than watering today. So A4 will need watering. B1 has some courgettes that need harvesting. It also needs to have some of its leaves cut back before this mildew becomes a problem. And number 3, I need to provide support for each of these, simply because of the fact that they're going straight, which is fantastic, but it's something that needs to be maintained in order to ensure that they don't crawl into each other. So once again, in B1, we have some courgettes to be harvested. You see, there's a courgette that needs harvesting, so we can do that. There we go. That's one. And I know that there's another one. And those 2 are going to take me shorter than 2 minutes, 1 minute to do. So there's another one. So underneath there, there's another Romanesco. Okay. Right. As most of you know, this is a time of harvest, and when we're harvesting a lot of stuff, we tend to find that it's a challenge to find space. I don't have a big house. I have a small home. And so what I've actually started doing is I've started canning, water bath canning my produce in order that I can continue to enjoy my harvest during the winter. And also, since I don't eat shop-bought vegetables since I started growing my own, this is a way of ensuring that I will continue to have what I need. Now, B2 has nothing that needs doing. It's a recent bed. It's to do with my succession planting. And I've put in some Savoy leaf cabbage and some leeks. B3 has work to be done. I was trying to save seeds with this cauliflower, but all it seems to do is flower, but nothing comes of it. So it needs to be pulled out. I believe there are a few onions in here that need harvesting. And so that's something that I will do. Beetroot also needs harvesting, so that's another job in there. The peas, which are in here, also need to be taken out because they're way past the time when they should have been taken out. B4 needs to be topped with some manure and some compost and something planted in it. But because I haven't got any seedlings ready for it, it's not a priority, so it can wait. B5, broccoli has had a feed, and probably the one job that needs doing in there is to take off the bottom leaves in order that there's airflow in the bottom. And so that's the only job that needs doing on B5. B6 is a brand new bed, as you all know, and it's doing well. However, one thing that I didn't consider is the fact that the plants I was putting in, the seedlings I was putting in, don't necessarily enjoy the heat. So the ones on this side are being scorched a little bit. So I have to ensure that when I come to water A3, which is my straw bed, I'm also making sure that I water B6 in order to keep that soil extremely moist so that the plants, little seedlings, can cope with what they're having to go through. And then B7, which is my bean bed, I just need to ensure that it is constantly watered. So it's just ensuring that I continuously water this to make sure that I will have a good harvest and the beans will actually swell up nicely. So watering and feeding is the only thing that needs doing in there. Okay, let's go on to C. Now C has a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 growing spaces. So C1, I succession planted, as I said. So I've got some carrots in there and they're doing fine. I just needed to make sure that they were continuously moist when I was actually waiting for them to germinate. And that's one of the reasons why I put this on here. So now the job that needs to be done now that they've germinated is to put on a net rather than this warm, this warm cover. And then what we'll do is it will ensure that we keep out the carrot root fly and the carrots will grow nicely, and it will also allow me to see what's going on in there in order that if needs be, I can go in and pull out the bindweed which is still prevalent in that bed. This bed is C2. C2, I need to cut back this Swiss chard again before it flowers. This bed has asparagus in it, and other than that, it hasn't really got anything else. I then need to mulch it with some of the, not the wood chip, but the leaves that were provided by the tree surgeon in order that we can maintain moisture, and that means that I won't have to water as frequently as I currently have to. Okay, and then in C3 is parsnips, and the parsnips are doing fine. I've got onions in there on the sides of the parsnips, but they're still growing, so nothing else needs doing there other than regular watering. C4, which is that bed in front of you here, this bed needs to have that Swiss chard cut out because it is too big compared to the cabbages, the red cabbages that are in there. I do have some red cabbage in there. believe it or not. But and I also need to pull out a lot of those strawberries because I don't want to have strawberries in there. So that bed needs to be cleared so that the cabbage has space to grow. D1 is maize, which is never going to grow too much, but I like its structure and I like how it looks, and therefore we're going to keep it in there and we're going to keep it watered. I'll cut back the Swiss chard a bit in order that we can have smaller tender leaves, and we'll leave it at that. We're not going to worry too much about it. C2 is doing fine as a bed. I haven't thought of what I'm going to put in it. I'm consistently getting this potato coming up since I got this allotment. So I'm thinking that this year, let me let it grow and see what it amounts to, and then I can dig it up. I need to read up about how to separate chives into different plants so that I can spread these out. And then C3 is just beans again, and these beans need to be wrapped around themselves. Like you see these here, they need to climb, so I'll come in and wrap those around, and that's a priority before they attach themselves to things I don't want them to attach themselves to. So C4 is my Brussels sprout bread, which is doing fine, but I think I need to go in and cut back the Swiss chard in there as well in order to ensure that the Brussels sprouts and the broccoli I put in there have space to grow. And in addition to that, I also need to harvest the last of my sprouting cauliflower before it goes to flower, and then I'll actually chop it up and put it in the freezer. In here I've got a kale plant, and I'm sure this is the perpetual one which grows every year. It's big, it's very big, so I'm thinking what I need to do with it is I need to just open it out, take a risk, and I'm hoping that it will survive the cabbage whites. If it doesn't, then it may be the case that I'm not able to keep it because I would have to build a higher frame for it, but I will think about it. I've got some curly kale in there, which is doing fine, and I'm happy with it. So it's making a decision. This C5 needs a decision on what we're going to do with this kale, and I need to pull out all the fennel lettuce that went to seed in there. And then in C6, it's basically cutting back all the Swiss chard. It's too much, too much, and it's becoming a source for disease. All that time I kept saying D, that was C, it was D I'm talking about, so all of that was D. E is this space. Now I've already put in one potato in here, and because next year I want to try and do the single seed potato challenge, I've been practicing at home, so I've got some potatoes to go in there. So I've got a potato to go in this space here. The Desiree potatoes are still going lovely, so nothing needs doing with them. I need to consider finding better supports for my flowers which are in here in order that they can stand tall and proud whenever they're flowering as they are right now. And in this same bed here, in E2, this is E2, I've got a small courgette here which needs to be harvested soon before it gets too big. And then E1, which is just there with the sprouting broccoli, which did not impress me before. I need to take out the sprouting broccoli and leave the cabbage to grow, and it will give me space for maybe a small broccoli plant in one of the corners. Now we go on to E3, which is the bed with the sweet corn in it. So that bed just needs regular feeding and watering. Now, I don't know much about okra, so one of the things I need to do for E3 is to find out whether or not I need to earth up the okra. The beans in here, the bolotto beans, are doing beautiful. Something else that's happening in E3 that needs work is I need to support my Nagina tomatoes, which are growing in here, because they're growing well, but I don't like them lying like this because I feel it's likely to cause disease. In F, we've only got these two beds, all of which have tomatoes. So what I need to do is I need to cut back, and this is a priority, I need to cut back these leaves because it looks a bit like blight, and this is a blight resistant plant. So I'm surprised that a blight resistant plant looks like it's got blight when the other plants are all looking fantastic. So this is a rose crush. Something else that also needs doing is the onions in here are starting to drop, and therefore they also need to be harvested. And these tomatoes also in this F1 bed need to be tied up to the poles so that they don't leak all over the space. So that one needs tying up. And then this one here also needs tying up as it grows taller. So that's one thing I need to do. In this bed, I've got quite a few tomatoes once again, and it's about maintaining the tying up of them in order to ensure that they don't leak out of the bed, because we do not want anything leaking out of the bed. These tomatoes is just keeping an eye, watering, feeding regularly in order to ensure that we continue to have a harvest. And this plant is still growing. It's still growing all the way up. And so now it's gotten too tall for me to tie back. And with the weather changing, I'm considering whether or not I let it continue to grow or whether I actually cut it back in order to ensure that I'll get a harvest. Right, in G section, what we have is the circular bed I put my French beans in, as well as my other bollotes. And these are going to be ready for harvesting soon. As you can see, we got loads and loads of French beans. And soon they will be ready for harvest. And I think what I want to do in order to allow me to be able to see them well is I want to provide support around the side so I can lift up the beans so that we can actually see them easily without having to bend down and do the lifting. Because look at this, guys. Look at that. How fantastic is that produce? I think I have more beans than I know what to do with. And then the bollotes are also starting to grow their pods, and they're doing fine. So this is all about watering and feeding. In fact, there's more to it because I've also got the asparagus bed here, which is G7. This one is about weeding it, mulching it, and not much more than that. So that's absolutely fine. So we go over here to G1, which is my mystery tomato, which I think might be the pork chop, which I got from home and took a risk putting it here. So this one is ripening, as you can see. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're harvesting it. We can cut back these leaves because I don't think it's going to be doing much in way of more growing. So I'll cut back the leaves and leave it just the leaves that are green, take off everything that is unhealthy. Next to it, G2 is the ochre in a self-watering system. So that one is whether or not I'll be earthing it up, just like us talking about the other one. So we shall see and decide when I've had a bit of reading. G4 is a, courgette plant, which although it's growing, it's not as happy as the other ones. So I have grown courgettes in here. Oh yes, what I need to do with this is I need to stand it up. I actually put a support in, purpose being to support it and stand it up so that we don't end up with a plant that is all over the place. And has Stella tied it on? No. So that's something we need to do. In G5, G3, G4. God, I'm getting myself in a tizzy. G4, I have to just keep an eye on the reservoir to make sure that these carrots are growing as they should. The spring onions are being superseded by because I actually put spring onions in there, but you can't even see them because the carrots have grown so much compared to them. In here, strawberries that I haven't decided the fate of, but I'll decide and then we'll move on. This is a volunteer potato, which is still growing. So I thought I'll leave it and harvest it when it's ready. So it's about making sure that I actually water these two pots because they're not sitting on any reservoir. A section of E that I actually forgot is this bed here. So I'll class it as bed 4, E4. Now this bed was redundant, so I actually just stuck 2 tomato plants in here. So I need to provide them with support. They were side shoots, so provide them with support before they start fruiting, because I don't even know what type of tomato I pushed in there. It might be a big heavy one which needs a lot of support. So that's a job for E4. And I think that brings me back to here. The last little area is this, where I decided I like to have flowers next to my shed. However, what I found is it creates restrictions when I'm moving around my shed, because as you can see, I left myself very little in way of space to sit and relax. So this is only a one-time thing. Next year, I'll probably consider putting it elsewhere. where it doesn't cause a restriction. So this will be cleared, but I do need to deadhead this sunflower. And what I'm doing is something that the elderly gardener does, which is to he said he cuts off the heads and keeps them for winter and puts them out for the birds and the little critters in the winter when there's not much else to eat. So I've been collecting mine. I'll need to work out how I keep them where no mice will actually come, because I don't want to take them home. So probably I need to find a well-sealed container to put them in once they're dry, in order that I can have them stored for winter. The last thing I need to do is to measure this space, because as I was planning a long time ago, those of you who've been with me long enough know, I want to have a greenhouse. But I need to have a greenhouse that will also allow me to retain some space for storing things such as my canes, my compost, which I've organized here, as well as to still have some level of self-watering systems. The main purpose for me having a greenhouse is to have somewhere to grow my seedlings from January, because as I said, I don't have a big space at home. So what I want to do is I want to be able to start my seedlings and have somewhere where I can keep them and have them warmed up without worrying about fungus gnats, because I really, really cannot stand fungus gnats. So as I was saying, germination is easy, but what I find is, where do I keep the plants and seedlings until it's time to plant them out? So having a greenhouse will help that. And despite the fact that I've been humming and hawing about it, I need to find somewhere where I can actually go and look at greenhouses. And there is a place close to me. So I'm probably going to end up going there to try and find a greenhouse that's small enough, but will function as I want it to. I want a functional greenhouse which will just have shelves to put seedlings on and an area for potting up, and that's it. I am not going to grow in it because, as you can see, my tomatoes are doing absolutely fine. So I don't feel that I need an indoor growing space for tomatoes, peppers, or anything like that, because granted, my peppers could be more successful, but at the worst, I'll just do my peppers hydroponically as I've done at home, because that has actually shown me that if I do them hydroponically, I end up with peppers which look and work well. So the final thing that I need to do with my plot is to clear my paths. And once I've done all of that work, there's one last thing I need to do. I'd forgotten. Behind me, you see my shed. Yes? So my shed needs to have sanded down and painted. So once that's done, the allotment will be at a stage where I can sit down and relax. But until then, that is the work I have to do. It's a lot of work. I'm going to sit down and write it all down instead of actually starting to do things. When I get home, I'll go through this video and I'll make a list as I go. And when I finish that list, I'll put it up on screen so you can actually see how much there is to do. All right, guys. I think I've bored you enough, but you now start to understand exactly what it is that goes through a gardener's brain when they're in their garden. We look around, we see things to do. We do things haphazardly, randomly, without consideration for what's a priority and what isn't a priority. So what I'm trying to suggest to people is, just rather than just going and doing whatever you can, whenever you can, maybe make a list so that you can choose from that list. And then at the end of each session, go around and see whether there's anything extra you need to add to your list. And to achieve that, we ideally need to have a list that we can actually walk about with. I've got my notebook with me today, so that's something that I can actually do. And yeah, if you do it that way, you're more likely to have success because you have a plan. And I read a book a long time ago, and the book is called Write It Down and Make It Happen. I believe in that book because using that book has led to a lot of successes in my life. And so write it down and you will make it happen. Sometimes without even checking your list again, you'll go back to check your list and find that you've done everything you had set out to do. So make sure that you take time to walk about your plot, not just to look at everything and say, oh my God, that's so pretty, but also to make sure that you're deciding what activity needs to take place in order to create your dream garden. Have a good one.